I just saw Bong Joon Ho's Mickey 17. Let's talk about it.
Every single one of you will be remembered throughout history.
They made me work my ass off, giving me one shitty mission after another.
You're an expendable. You're here to be expended.
Mickey 17, Bong Joon Ho's latest film since Parasites, the critically acclaimed Parasite, I should say, which came out in 2019. Feels like a lot later than that, but yeah, 2019, pre-pandemic. Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long since his last film. And before I start this review, I should note, all that Parasite we just mentioned here, I should note that I've only seen Parasites, Snowpiercer, and The Host out of his work. So I'm kind of a noob with his stuff, I should say. Just have that context going into this review. I haven't seen every single one of his works, but I've always heard good things about his other stuff, like Memories of Murder and Okja, I think is how you say that. I want to check those out definitely sooner than later. But yeah, just want to preface that before we do this review. Let's start with the things that I loved. Mark frickin' Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo plays Kenneth Marshall, who is basically a love child between Elon Musk and Trump. I feel like it's the best way to describe this character. He's just really on the nose type of villain here. I just really liked it, how almost cartoonishly evil he is. Like at one point much later in the film, towards the end of the film, he like basically has what looks like just like a Mussolini kind of get up, or just very fascist get up. His hair's all slicked back and he has like the whole military uniform on. But just throughout this whole film, like there's just many instances where I'm like, that's Elon Musk, that's Trump. And knowing Mark Ruffalo's politics, I feel like it makes sense. But also, it just works for what this movie is about, and we'll get into it later. But I also want to mention the GOAT, Toni Collette, who plays his wife, named Ilfa, if I remember correctly, who's like always on his shoulder, just telling him how great he is, just constantly glazing him up. And we'll get into critiques later, but one of my critiques was I wish we had more of her, because she's so good, and I always want to see more of her on screen when she's in movies. But still, like, I love that dynamic they had, and like I said, I wish we had more of it. But she does get pretty good some scenes later in the movie. But just I wanted to point out, just right at the top, Mark freaking Ruffalo, Toni Collette, love them. Keeping on characters, you also gotta love, of course, our main character, Mickey. The reason why we're all here, being played by Robert Pattinson. It's fun to see Robert Pattinson in a more humorous role after his last couple movies, like The Lighthouse and The Batman. I mean, to be fair, The Lighthouse, I guess, has comedic moments, but it's more melodramatic compared to this film.
Oh boy, a rare, a bloody steak. If I had a steak, I would fuck it.
And I remember seeing somewhere that he used Steve-O from Jackass as inspiration for this character, and I definitely see that, especially in terms of his voice. But it was good to see him bring a different type of charm to this role, and you quickly like fall in love with this character, and you're always cheering for him throughout this entire film. But it was really nice to see him do something a little bit different, and I know he's. Cause I have The Lighthouse on, I think a collector's edition, 4K or whatever. I remember like in the extra, bonus features or whatever, he mentions like how he always tries to pick roles that challenge him in different ways. So I'm not surprised that he's done a different role since The Batman and The Lighthouse. I know we're getting probably a Batman. I shouldn't say probably. We are getting a Batman sequel. Well, I guess I can say probably because it seems to be getting delayed quite a bit. But I trust that Matt Reeves will get it done eventually. But But yeah, I'm a big fan of Robert Pattinson. I like that he challenges himself and does different roles every time. I will always show up to see his movies for sure, and it's one of the main reasons I was even interested in this movie was him, and obviously, of course, Bong Joon Ho's work that I have seen. Those two going in, I was like, I really wanted to see that, and then, like I said earlier, Mark Ruffalo and Tony Collette, I also really like them a lot too. So, yeah, I just want to point out that like Robert Pattinson, I think really does a fantastic job in this film. Like I said, just you quickly fall in love with him. He just has like a charm to him that you really love. And I think if he was a different type of character, if he was super serious, this whole plot wouldn't really work, or this whole story really wouldn't work. So yeah, shout out to our guy Robert Pattinson. Oh, I should have mentioned this is one of the biggest parts of this film in terms of his acting and also the special effects. I want to shout out his ability to act with himself and do, a twin, do a double. And you have to tip the hat, right, to like the special effects there too, because I'm sure it was really hard for him to kind of pretend, that someone's in front of him, himself's in front of him, and knowing the timings and the cadence, to use with his double that we get, in the kind of middle part of the film and then onwards. And on the special effects end, it looked seamless, looked flawless. And I've seen, there's been plenty of examples of twins or whatever, or body doubles in films throughout history of filmmaking. And I think it's gotten better, of course, over the decades. But just to compare it to something that came out recently, and I feel like it's on a way another level compared to this. And Sonic the Hedgehog 3, on this YouTube channel, we've reviewed all the Sonic movies. We have a separate podcast called Sonic Movie Show, which you can find on this channel, about the Sonic movie. And in that movie, you have Jim Carrey, playing as Eggman. Then, light spoilers, he's also playing Dr. Robotnik. What's his name? Otto something Robotnik, whatever. He's playing, his grandfather or whatever, right? And there's moments when they're both on the scene like that. I could tell that it was obviously a different person. They kind of like, CG'd him on or rotoscoped him on, however the technology works. And at some parts in that movie, it kind of doesn't look the best. It's passable, especially if you're a kid who's watching the movie, but it isn't always perfect. And in this film, I didn't find any issues like that. It looked literally flawless. It was really well done. I don't know how they did it, but shout out to them. It really did look like they're literally twins on screen and interacting with each other. They did a really, really good job. So yeah, nothing compared to Sonic 3, and like I said, Sonic 3 I do like. I don't think it was bad, the doubles, but it wasn't perfect. But Mickey 17 to me is like, this should be the new standard if you're doing a movie about twins or having the same actor on the screen at the same time. Really, really well done. Another character I want to shout out is Nasha, played by Naomi Ackie, who's quickly told to us that she's the soulmate for Mickey, and will also just kick your ass and take names. They quickly put them together in that kind of first 15-20 minutes of the film, and I kind of like that they just kind of were like, hey, these people are together, they're in love, and we didn't need to like build up into that. I think this is a story about Mickey, but she is a major part of it. But I like that they kind of just were like, these two love each other. They've been on this ship for 3 years, and they kind of just quickly jumped to that. I think that's one of the bright spots of this film is like the ability to trust the audience to just buy into it and just letting it happen. I think, not saying there's anything against movies that build up a relationship or whatnot, but I'm kind of okay with the pacing of their relationship. There's issues I have with the pacing overall, don't get me wrong, but like the pacing of them two, I was okay with them being like, us being kind of told like, I fell in love with her at the cafeteria, and we, you know, spend all this time together throughout the rest of the film, and I believe it. Like, I don't need to be proved it. You know what I mean? It just, they quickly got to that point of like, hey, they're together. And I did like that she got kind of she was a major part of the final act, especially with putting the little creeper on the hook there, or she saved the creeper off the hook, which that whole scene really hurt. My whole theater was like, no, don't do it. Don't kill the baby, the baby creeper. But I'm glad that she saved the day and like took command in that situation. She winds up being, I don't know the title, but she kind of winds up being the leader of the whole, you know, space colony there at the end of the movie. So I think that's really cool. Really did like her character, and yeah, I'm glad she saved the day and saved that baby creeper. But yeah, I really liked the main cast of characters, except for one, which you might have noticed I haven't mentioned yet. But I'm going to save my critiques closer to the other half of this video. So once I get there, I'll get there. But let's move on from characters. I want to point out the setting, or the settings. Really, there's only two. It's the ship, and the planet, which I forget the name it's on, but it's like this frozen over planet. We do spend some time on Earth, but it's really, really quick. It's only for that little prologue at the beginning there for Mickey's backstory. But yeah, most of it takes place on this planet and on the ship. And I like that this is small scale. It's easy to ease into this. I think some science fiction films try to sometimes do too much. They try to pull a Star Wars and like introduce multiple planets. But even Star Wars, you know, originals, I think they slowly built that up, right? Or they spend most of their time on one or two planets. And I feel like that's always something that I've noticed in science fiction films I don't like, where it's just there's too many planets, too many like, they'll show too many planets, but then they'll introduce too many like aliens or creatures or whatever, and try to like explain it too much lore dumping. You know, I think some of my favorite science fiction films know when to keep it, you know, focused on like one setting. And I think setting's always important in science fiction films, because you theoretically could do anything, right? Once you get into space, you can kind of decide what you want to do with it. And you can pace it that way. I think settings add to the pace, right? But I do like that this setting was the ship and the planet, and we don't really leave that. It makes it feel, in a way, makes the universe feel more vast, you know, because it doesn't show us other things. It kind of just like, nope, here's just one planet of, who knows, thousands out there that these people can go to. Actually, I want to, while we're talking about the ship and the planet, I want to mention there's one scene really early on. Actually, it's the same scene I was talking about before, where Mickey meets Nasha in the cafeteria. In that cafeteria, they only show this once, and I thought when they first showed it, I'm like, oh, maybe they're gonna go back to it at some point, and they didn't, which makes me think that this was an Easter egg. And this might be a stretch, but the more I think about it, I feel like actually it is an Easter egg. But there's like a quick moment where Nasha, I believe, is on screen, and in the background there is a basketball hoop, and it's like in the foreground, so it's in the background, so it's like kind of blurred out, you know, it's not fully visible, but you can tell it's a basketball hoop. So this basketball hoop reminded me of Alien 4 Resurrection. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, what? Well, there's that one somewhat famous scene from that movie where Ripley shoots it behind her back, you know, and it goes in, which I believe was not like, it was supposed to be that she just throws it back and they were going to cut, but she actually made it, so they kept it in the film. But I think that's a reference, and at first I was trying to psych myself out of it, where I was like, nah, it's too much of a stretch, just a basketball hoop. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, the angle in that shot kind of made sense, kind of matched up, just in reverse, or it's mirrored rather. And I was like, and what is Alien 4 about? Resurrection. Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, you know, it's her coming back to life. She's cloned. And that's what this movie is about, too. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch the more I thought about it. The only reason I'm still hesitant is just like, they never show it again. It's never used in the film. But in a way, I guess that makes it more of an Easter egg. But I'm like, why is the basketball hoop in the cafeteria when they never show it either? But whatever. I'm just going to assume either it's a happy coincidence and it's just a little detail they threw in there. But I also kind of want it to be an Easter egg. I hope it's an Easter egg. And I hope I was a really cool person for identifying it. But yeah, let me know what you think about that one. Now I'll mention here another thing I did like about the movie is the general politics of this film, or rather how it's presented, the politics. But it's obvious to me that it's anti-authoritarian, anti-colonization, anti-capitalism, just throughout this whole movie. I also think it dives a bit into the morals, the scientific dilemma that's been around since it ever started, which is about cloning. And also part of that of like what makes us human, and our connection to technology, and when does it, when have we gone too far? The Frankenstein question, right? I think overall it does a decent job of showing these. But if you're conservative, you probably either missed all those things, or you might have called it woke, or you just didn't see this movie. I don't know, but yeah, through all the comedic moments for this film, and there's quite a bit, I feel like the comedy was generally pretty solid. Nothing like laugh out loud funny for me, but it wasn't like Marvel humor, which I was kind of worried about based off the trailer. I was worried it was just going to be, how many jokes can we fit into a scene? When I feel like they knew when to have jokes, when to keep it comedic. But yeah, through all this comedy and the drama, you still had these messages of, like I said, anti-authoritarian, anti-colonization, anti-capitalism throughout, the film. And this is where it's kind of closer to Parasite for me, where it's on the nose in moments, but also in the foreground too, with these themes. Obviously, going back to Mark Ruffalo's Marshall character there, he's to me more on the nose, right? Of like, hey, we hate fascists, we hate authoritarian figures who only care about their ego, and not the rest of their people that they're leading. But also it's more in the foreground too when it comes to just how the technology is being used throughout this film, and like, hey, we're going to come to this planet because our Earth is kind of fucked up, and we're also just going to kill this species that's already been here because humans need to survive. We can't coexist with anybody. But then you have also Snowpiercer, which I felt was way more direct in its messaging throughout that film. But kind of digressed on that point. But yeah, I just felt they did a pretty good job of throughout this film having both the on the nose but also subtle political messages. Now let's move on to the story. Obviously, we have Mickey here, who is, not arguably, is the most important piece in this conflict between the Creepers and Marshall. He's the one who's able to learn that the Creepers are pretty docile, actually, and they're just here to be peaceful as much as they can. But us humans want to come and colonize and destroy their way of life. But what's also cool, right, about this story is that Mickey starts from as a grunt, a no-name, an expendable person, from a background that is, well, I'll get into that. But, he goes from being a no-name, just a regular guy, not just a regular guy, probably at the lowest in the totem pole, on this ship, to becoming one of the main reasons, if not the most important reason why they're even able to win, and fight back Marshall and overthrow him, basically, and save the day. So I think that's an overall pretty cool story. I'm not gonna say it's like the best story I've ever told, but it's pretty solid, and I like the from the lowest to kind of fighting back and beating the fascist. But yeah, the story overall pretty good. But the origin story of Mickey himself, I don't know. And we'll get into my critiques now of just this film and his backstory with Timo, played by Steven Yeun. I didn't love this. I feel like it was just, I don't know. Like, well, I guess let me start with kind of breaking it down, right? So Mickey leaves Earth after running away from, I guess, like a mob, because him and Timo owed them a lot of money, right? And we start the film with him and Timo right together on the ice planet, and then we get that flashback of how he got there, and it's just them going through the mob, and he's like, "Oh, I need to leave," and we thought the best place to hide was, millions and millions of miles away. And I'm like, okay, cool. I thought that was gonna be kind of it, but there's like flashbacks throughout this film about like him and his mom, if I'm not mistaken, and that kind of was just there. But then just Timo's whole story of like it kept reoccurring with like Mickey, the other Mickey, I think it was Mickey 18, wanted to kill him. And then Mickey 17 is like, no, we can't do that. But at one point, when they're in kind of they're locked up there, Timo wanted to take the opportunity to like pay off his debt. And just like this whole story, I just felt like it felt out of place. It feel like it didn't. I don't mind it as a reason to like get on the ship, but I don't think we needed to keep going back to it. I shouldn't say we even kept going back to it, because I feel like it really wasn't happening that often. But when it did, it felt very much like, I don't really care about this part. I kind of want to just focus on the main story here of, him and the Marshal and the Creepers, and what is, him and Nasha gonna do about Mickey 18 and vice versa, right? That relationship, I thought that was cool. But yeah, I didn't really buy the whole Timo backstory with Mickey. But yeah, I just feel like it just didn't work, and I just felt the stakes, like they felt high at moments, but also at the same time didn't really matter, because the real big stakes was like, hey, these creepers are gonna come and destroy this ship. And listen, I love Steven Yeun from Walking Dead and Nope. This isn't his fault. I think he performed really well. It's just that the writing for his character Timo, I just don't think it was needed. It just didn't feel like it was. It just didn't feel right with the rest of this film. This movie was based off a book called Mickey 7, I believe. Author is Edward Ashton, who actually lives in upstate New York, nearby where I'm from. And I'm sure in this book, maybe there's way more. Obviously, it's a book, so you can go a little bit more into backstories and origin stories. And maybe the pacing's better in that, in terms of the whole Timo and Mickey relationship. But yeah, it just, like I said, it just didn't work for me. And just like that was kind of I think that side story, or origin story rather, hurt this film with the pacing. I think the movie's over 2.5 hours almost, and at moments it did drag, and I feel like the parts it did drag for me was the whole Timo story. I think this film should have focused primarily on Mickey dealing with being replicated, and his relationship with Nasha. I forgot to mention Kai as well, who tries to get romantically involved as well. I feel like we should have focused on that, and then also obviously the big plot point of the Creepers versus Marshall versus the humans. I think that would have helped the pacing and elevated this movie more. So overall, this movie for me felt a little bit longer than it needed to be because of those parts that I felt like dragged. I don't think it really made this movie bad by any means, but I think this movie could have been better if we maybe just focused, like I said, on those things. I think I got everything out that I wanted to with this film. And overall, this is, like I said, I think the fourth or third thing that I've seen from Bong Joon Ho. And this is, to me, the weakest, just because of the story pacing and how it's told. Just felt like it was trying to cram or fit too many storylines in when I feel like the easier story was right there, and it was the best story in the film, but we needed just to focus on that, I think. Yeah, I think I got everything out that I wanted to say about this film, but I'll say this. Despite the issues that I have with the story and the minor characters, I feel like I would still watch this film again. Or if someone was looking for a fun science fiction movie that isn't, just Star Wars or whatever, I would probably recommend this. It has a lot of heart, has a lot of charm, has a more, feel-good ending where the good guys win. And it isn't some, compared to some science fiction films that try to have some vague ending or whatnot, or make you almost, at least for me, sometimes feel, maybe not hopeful for the future. This movie felt different in that way. I did like its ending, where it feels like all the good people are in power and are gonna make sure they work with the creepers, and I think that's really cool. So the more I think about it, like, this is maybe not as popcorny as like The Meg or Twisters, but it's at least a snack movie, maybe some M&Ms, Chex Mix, But yeah, I feel like so far, though, in addition to that, this is the best movie I've seen in theaters this year. We'll see where it fits at the end of 2025 if I do another, top 5 movies of 2025. But for right now, it's my number one by default. I'm really curious what else we're going to get this year. But I feel like science fiction is probably my second favorite genre, and I still feel like I'm a noob in that genre. I feel like there's so many I haven't seen yet. But I really liked this one. I really did. It had, like I said, a lot of charm, and I liked the feel-goodness that this movie gave at the end, and it's just fun. It was a fun movie, despite its somewhat major faults of that story with Timo and whatnot, and the pacing. But yeah, I still think I'd recommend this. So let's give it a Letterboxd score and an S-rank movie rating. Mickey17, I'm going to give you a 4.5 on Letterboxd. And I'm going to give you a high B. Despite its faults with a side/origin story and the pacing issues, this is an original film, breath of fresh air, compared to a lot of the franchises and remakes that are always coming out. This is a solid science fiction film, and some characters who are easy to cheer for and root against. I think this is a B movie. I look forward to seeing what Bong Joon Ho cooks up next. It puts on, if anything, it puts pressure on me to watch his other work. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm going to give this a B rank and a 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. All right, that is it, folks. Let me know what you thought of Mickey17 in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed this review. And if you're looking for more, don't worry, there is more. I've just done reviews on The Brutalist and The Damned. And then if you want to hear me and my other friend here on this channel, Ethan, and I, we do video game movie reviews, along with our other friend Devon. But we also, we've done so many for the last couple years. There's plenty to choose from. But maybe one day also I will branch out into some older films to do on this channel. We'll see. This one was a little bit tough to get done just because of stuff outside of all this. I've just been really busy. But yeah, let me know what you think about this review and about the movie. And I'll see you next time. See you at the movies. Peace. I'm Devon, one half of S Rank, and you're watching MTV Cribs.